In the old days, you knew where you were in the mountains. Lance Armstrong would wait for the first altitude finish, then calmly set about the business of finishing off his rivals.
And now he's gone again, and when he goes, Paul, we wonder, because this man just opens a gap and makes Ulrich look like a club cyclist. Armstrong has lifted the rev.
He's going again, he's accelerating again, Phil, this is amazing.
Just look at this, he has ripped away. He took a look straight into the eyes there of Jan Ulrich and said, well, here I go, are you coming or not? And the answer is not.
So far this year, the parade of potential heirs to the Armstrong method hasn't produced a single positive ID. And if no one rider is strong enough today to impose some definitive shape on this race in the Pyrenees, then the Pyrenees might have to do the job for them. One look at the stage profile, and it was obvious a major sort-out was in prospect. 5 climbs kicking off with the massive Col du Tourmalet over 2,000 metres high, and concluding with the climb up to Pla de Beret, or Beret, since the finish was across the border in Spain. Well, the casualties started early. Giovanni Lombardi of CSC went on the first climb of the day, and Iban Mayo, looking increasingly like going himself with every pedal turn, was appealing to the camera bike for privacy in which to do it. Discovery, the team that set the pace in the mountains 7 years running for Lance Armstrong, were losing riders off the back of the main field by the kilometre. Paolo Savoldelli, the highest placed of them, followed by Jaroslav Popovic. And the damage was being done by the small, lightly regarded AG Desert team of the race leader Cyril Dessel, who led the bunch up the Tourmalet. Leading over the top of the Tourmalet and over the Col d'Aspin was a 4-man breakaway group containing 2 of the early leaders of the King of the Mountains competition, the German Gerolsteiner rider Fabian Wegmann and David de la Fuente of Spain and Sonia Duval. Trying to get across to them from the main field was the French national hero Thomas Voeckler. As we join the action on the 3rd climb of the day, the Col de Peyresourde, Wegmann and de la Fuente have pulled away on their own at the front, and Voeckler is now struggling behind them.
72 kilometres still to ride. We're approaching the last couple of kilometres. Look at the crowd and the car line right up the mountain ahead. Those 2 riders, De La Fuente and Wegmann, clear. This man could reach out, or could have reached out and touched those 2 leaders. He's hit the wall and he's going backwards.
Well, you know what probably psychologically cracked him was he saw the yellow car, the neutral service car, which he presumed was behind the leaders. Then all of a sudden, when he got to that yellow car, it was actually behind Iker Comano, and he knew then he had another 200 or 300 metres to go to catch the 2 leaders. And at that point, I think his body just cracked.
Well, it's rather sad for Thomas Voeckler. This was a big effort here. Of course, the Tour de France, every pedal you turn, we see it on television in the mountains. Tremendous pressure on these riders. They don't like to be seen suffering. They like to be seen as superstars that find it all just a little bit too easy. And it's never the case, of course, because it is the hardest sporting event in the world. And again, Carlos da Cruz trying to hang on here. This is a sprinter, and he's living with the climbers just now.
Everybody at the moment is going through their own personal little bit of purgatory. I saw Koos Murenhout moving forward for Team Phonak, so that's another teammate alongside Floyd Landis to help him in the latter part of this race. Hincapie is in the group, looking very comfortable. Jose Acevedo has not been put under any stress. 1 kilometre to go. Now, how is he going to try and win this one? A little flitch of the arm there for David de la Fuente. These 2 riders, Phil, separated by 2 points. Advantage at the moment is the Spaniard. This man has to get the points this time to move equal.
Exactly, and it would be nice to do that, but you know, this could be the last time they sprint for a climb today. By the time we get to the top of the Portillon, there might be a different picture. And so they both need these. If Wegmann gets it, they'll call it a draw as they race through Luchon to the Portillon. The advantage Wegmann if he stays in this 2nd place position. These 2 rides have proved quite a revelation in the Tour de France this year, because they haven't just popped up now. They've been in our cameras ever since we started from Strasbourg. Are they going to do this side by side and make it an affair of honour? Perhaps. No.
Well, I wonder what the little discussion was there. I think basically the man at the front, the Spanish rider, was saying, come on, mate, let's just keep riding and then we can sprint it out at the top. But Fabian Wegmann has done the majority of the pacemaking, so now he probably feels it's fair for him to sit at the back and try and get the sprint. But Jaroslav Popovic, the man that we reckoned was going to be the big star for Discovery, seems to be having a little bit of a problem at the back end of the main field, looking for the team car. This is not good at this stage of the game because he's still got 2 mountains to go.
Well, it's going to leave George Hincapie or Jose Azevedo as the men elect to lead the team as we go on, because they're cracking themselves in the mountains. The others have all been in trouble today. Igor Martinez has dropped back, so too has Rubiera, Savadelli. This is the next group here now, and that is Camano, just being caught, ironically, beneath his country's flag there, at least the Basque-Land country's flag. Up comes the leader now, and that is Michael Bogart with Cloden on the far left. The team leaders on the far right of AG2R. Rasmussen looking for a few more points in case the other two up front decide to crack in the last week of the tour.
Also riding well just in the front of the group there was Frank Schleck, the Luxembourg rider on Team CSC. Also in the group, Carlos Sastre. A lot of the big names still looking very comfortable. Still nobody's taken control of the pacemaking at the front end of the group, but this group has been seriously reduced in numbers. Great job of work done this on. Here's David Lafuente.
Just back in time, but this time it's going to have to be a very special effort here from Weckman, because I think David de la Fuente is running back into the King of the Mountains leaders jersey tonight as he pulls well clear. There's the Breton flag flying to cheer him on. It was in Brittany almost where he got the lead briefly as he raced across northern France. I think he can probably sit up and have a rest now if he took a look over his shoulder. That should do it. Well, good luck to him. First Tour de France, and here he is racing for a leader's jersey. This should put him on top in the King of the Mountains competition.
What a fabulous move that was. He actually asked Fabian Wegman to come forward. Let's keep working to the top and sprint it out. When he was getting no assistance from Fabian Wegman, he said, right, mate, I'm off. And he really gapped him immediately with that first jump. But there's still another climb to go. These two riders might survive. I have a funny feeling that quick calculation will give the lead to De La Fuente by 3 points ahead of Cyril Dessel. Wegman up into 3rd place. Mercado dropping down into 4th. And Inigo Landaluz, who was in the breakaway yesterday, he is currently in 5th. But this man, currently new leader. That is quite rare, Phil, to see somebody lead on the small mountains in the start of the tour, the 3rd and 4th categories, and then get the lead back in the mountains, the big mountains.
Well, I've not got any record of this man winning a single bike race. Clearly he's a good rider. He wouldn't have got a professional contract, but he's not a winner as such yet. Here he comes, his first Tour de France. We saw him, I think it was on day 2 of the tour, in the thick of the action. Got a brief lead in the King of the Mountains. Now he's done it again when it really matters, deep in the Pyrenees. Now we'll probably see the rider on Rabobank here, Michael Rasmussen, tried to be led out to the line again by Michael Bogart. Well, we know that Camargo has been caught now, Camano rather. I expect to see Fletcher caught pretty soon as well. And then they'll be racing for 4th place. Still up front, don't forget, is Thomas Vogler. But for how much longer? I think poor Thomas is in a bit of trouble now.
Well, he's going to pay for that effort, Thomas Vogler, getting off the front. He's trying to stay in control. Look at this. He's actually managed to find a little bit of extra oomph there to get onto the wheel of Rasmussen. But no, sorry.
Oh, he's rocking and rolling now, Paul.
He's a brave rider. He's an extremely courageous rider.
Yeah.
Having tried to bridge a 4-minute gap, he's still trying to stay in control. He wants to get points for the King of the Mountains classification. I cannot believe he's going to get any.
He's going to try, but he'll get some if he stays there, whatever he finishes. This is the different picture of the Tour de France just now at the back, and Koos Moerenhout, who seemed to be okay, is now slipping backwards, which is rather sad for him. And the other rider here from the black jersey is Xavier Zandio. Remember, he crashed yesterday, but he seemed to get back on his bike okay. Patrice Algon, not a bad climber, Patrice, but you know, looking at the helicopter, you can actually see just how steep that kick is up to the line here.
It's nasty. The last 1.5 kilometers at around about 9%. But look at the time gap, how that has come down, and there hasn't really been a serious chase so far. As Rasmussen just sits there, he's going to be given the points there by his teammate Michael Bogart. Bogart, in fact, is actually probably riding one of his best Tour de France's. We've seen him so many times in the mountains, losing big chunks of time.
Riding very, very sensibly too. He's done it for his teammates here. The climber who was the King of the Mountains last year, Rasmussen. But I think actually Rasmussen gone over at 3 minutes in 3rd place there. As the riders now top the Col de Peyresourde, a mere 2 more passes still to come.
We're just looking at the onboard computer here. He did go across the line in 4th place there because David de la Fuente was 1st. 2nd was Wegman, and Juan Antonio Fletcher still did survive for 3rd. So that will be a 4th place finish for Michael Rasmussen. 5th for Michael Bogart, and Thomas Vogler just going over the top of the climb, staying in contact here with the back of the group. 22, Giuseppe Guerini, a winner at the top of the Alpe d'Huez a number of years ago, and fell off inside the last kilometre. And that is the technical descent of the Col de Peresur. Here's Fabian Wegman, made a daredevil descent to catch up with Davide de la Fuente, and still caught in no man's land is Juan Antonio Fletcher, who's roughly at 1.5 minutes to these two, and the main field is hovering at around about the 3-minute mark. But I think it's all going to change. I noticed at just the last moment we saw a lot of the big names moving to the front, who were averaging around about 45 miles an hour going down this descent. A little bit tricky at this point, but it's not a dangerous descent after the first couple of kilometers, and you can keep a fairly good average speed. But what's important on a descent like this is not to keep going full on, is actually to try and remember, eat and drink, because you cannot do that when you go uphill.
Well, good descending, and what a great break today for these two.
Next sprint point of the day, 5 kilometers away from where we are here, and that is in the center of the town of Luchon. These riders now 5 kilometers away from that point, and that would put them just around about the town of Saint-Aventin. Big wide road now. They've gone away from the technical part at the top of the course, but the big riders now, Hincapie, Leipheimer, Andreas Kloden, Michael Rogers, Cadel Evans in this group, all thinking about when or how they're going to make a move. Are they going to be brave enough to make a move and try and do something rather incredible and heroic and try and take this race by the horns, or are they going to wait to the final climb of the day and see if any other riders just get swept away? That's the big question.
Past this lovely church here as we're on our way downhill. The riders fattening up again from the rear end as they come down the mountain. There's still a very select group here, Paul. It's a lot bigger than I thought after the way we've ridden over the cols today.
Well, there's been an elimination, and especially in the last couple of kilometers of the climbs, and what we've been seeing happening is, I think, Phil, probably 1 or 2 riders actually sitting up in the last 1.5 kilometers and then taking a few risks to reintegrate on the descent. That stops them going right into that very high level of lactic acid production. These two men are having a wonderful day in the mountains, but I'm beginning to think they will not survive, because the main contenders have to accelerate over the next 2 climbs.
I don't think they broke away so early on thinking they were going to win the stage. It's happened before. Claudio Chiappucci at Sestriere a few years back springs to mind, but these two went out to try and consolidate a lead in the King of the Mountains. Wegman particularly, he was unlucky when he attacked. David de la Fuente was alert and went with him. It's what it's resulted in is we now have 2 riders locked together in a battle for the polka dot jersey. Both riders, I don't think, expect to still survive at the finish of the day. The guy in yellow there is a 4th-year professional. We've never seen him before because he's never won a bike race.
He's never won a bike race in his career, but he's always been fairly consistent. Ridden some of the longer stage races around, and in his 4th year as a professional, he's starting to get a feel for the professional peloton. He did ride the Vuelta a España in his 1st year as a pro, and that was way back in 2003, and he finished 156th, but I think since then he's really improved quite a fraction. And last year he finished 58th overall in the Tour of Catalonia. This year he seems to have got everything correct, and he seems to have got himself right on form for the Tour. Although he has been an aggressive rider, normally it's very difficult to be aggressive in the first week of the Tour and then be consistent in the big mountains, but he certainly has proved that he's got no fear at all of going out on a lone escapade. But this valley has been in the past an area which has been laid waste to many attacks, and in fact it was invaded by the barbarians and the Saracens, and it depended on the kings of Aragon to defend it. Spanish, by the way, destroyed the village in 1711 when they set fire to it. Another fire in 1723 destroyed the whole town with only the church surviving. So this is Wegman. So Fletcher now at 3 minutes and 10 seconds, and the main field at around about 3 minutes and 35 seconds. Fabian Wegman looks to be suffering a little bit here now, and this is not yet quite on the early slopes of the Col de Portillon. Fabian Wegman, who's been putting the majority of the pacemaking into the success of this breakaway here this afternoon, seems to have paid the price.
He's just cracked it. Well, hats off to David de la Fuente. I don't know where he's found the strength from today, but he's ridden a super race for Sonia Duval. Remember, he's being drawn by the fact he lives in Spain. He's going home. He's not going to get caught by the bunch until he crosses the frontier, and it's not very far away now.
It isn't far away at all. It's just over the summit of this climb. In fact, I think the summit is the frontier between France and Spain, and then we go into the Spanish province of Lleida, and then the riders ride the last 40 kilometers of the race up to the finish line. And this man's certainly spurred on by that. Well, Race Radio just crackling with the information that Juan Antonio Fletcher has just been caught by the main field. So the race situation is there are only 2 men now in front of the main field. There's Fletcher over on the right-hand side. Fabian Wegman in second place on the road, 20 seconds now down on the lone leader, David de la Fuente. What Wegman has to do now, Phil, is try and find a rhythm that's comfortable for himself. Just try and ride at his own rhythm, because fairly shortly, I would say probably halfway up this climb, he also is probably going to get caught by the main field.
I don't know if you noticed there, Fletcher immediately passes bottle to Michael Rasmussen, who's his teammate, because Fletcher's dropping right back. He'll see the team car. He can get himself a fresh one, and that saved Rasmussen going back for a full bottle of fluid. So even when you've finished, a teammate's still a teammate. As we now watch the action here from T-Mobile to test just who is going to go well, and Floyd Landis has all the answers. He's right there with Christophe Moreau, 3rd and 4th.
Matthias Kessler up there setting the pressure now for T-Mobile. They don't have a great strong team. They've lost a lot of riders since the start. The 2 men were pulled out, Oscar Sevilla and Jan Ulrich. But here now they are trying to take the race to the mountains. There is Michael Rogers over on the left-hand side. He's coming forward. Landis in the middle there in the white, green and yellow jersey doesn't seem to be under any pressure at all. Michael Bogert is riding superbly. I've rarely seen him ride so well in the high mountains. The pale blue jersey over to the right-hand side is Levi Leipheimer. He too looks very comfortable. Damiano Cunego riding a lot better today than he did yesterday. Christophe Moreau in the middle, out of the saddle, and the AG2R jersey, well, he is taking over the mantle now as team leader. I don't suppose that's a major surprise, because he was regarded as team leader before the start.
Well, just the one man I haven't noted for, we'll just watch for him, is George Hincapie there. He's not mixed it with these people just yet. This is the carnage now, as the riders now crack violently. The yellow jersey being left on his own here. The Maillot Jaune of the Tour de France rode brilliantly today, but it's been a mountain and a half too far to the finish.
Well, you know, when you put in an effort like these men in the breakaway did yesterday, Mercado and this man Dessel, you have to pay the price. It's almost impossible to put in that same effort 2 days in a row. That is why the big leaders of the Tour de France yesterday, Phil, I think took a back seat, because they knew what was in store. They knew what was going to happen today with 5 big mountains on the agenda. It was going to be a serious sorting out at the top end of the leaderboard. This man has now got to just wear this jersey with pride. Look at him fighting with his shoulders, just trying to get the pedals over, trying to stay in contention. He's got a good chance of holding on. You know, he's got 4 minutes and 45 seconds advantage over Floyd Landis, but even on a day like today, that might not be enough.
I'm just a little concerned about George Hincapie. We need our camera to tell us who is in this group. Leipheimer is here. And that's a big recovery for Levi here, and a big leap up the overall classification tonight if he can hang on to this group. This is a most interesting move. Now, look at this. Marcus Foten, the best young rider, is also tagged onto the back. It's his Tour de France this year for sure, as he tries to hold them.
Tip for the future, this young man, 12th overall in the Giro d'Italia last year. He's just sitting at the back of the group, leads the white jersey classification. You can see Levi Leipheimer's also got a teammate up there, because Georg Tocznik is just in front of him.
Yes, and the 2, in fact, and there's Simoni. Well, Simoni had a bad climb on the Tourmalet, but he's got over that. Salvatore Comessa, and that group must be behind.
That was Damiano Cunego, number 81 there in this group, and he's made a great recovery. He had a very difficult time yesterday on the Col de Mary Blanc, but he's fought himself back in.
Meanwhile, we've almost forgotten about this rider here, getting on with the job of getting first into Spain. When you're Spanish, that's something, as he races up towards the top of the Col de Portillon. But that counter-attack has got this gap down to 2.5 minutes now. 48 kilometres, just on 30 miles to race to the line. 2.5 minutes to the leader of the Tour. He might get over the top, though, before he sees anybody.
Well, one man who we haven't got a positive ID on, who is in the group and is a very serious climber for the last climb of the day, Jaimar Zubeldia, is in this group. Now, he is also one of those riders who is coming home. He's riding across into Spain. Michael Bogert is there. Michael Rasmussen is there. Floyd Landis up towards the front of this group. This is a very serious sorting out now, Phil, at the front end of the main field. I'm sure George Hincapie must be in here, but I haven't yet seen him.
He's about 8 men back from the front of the group here. Our camera can't get alongside them. There he is. At last we've seen George, relief all round, looking very cool, calm and collected, but the team has been blown away today. Hincapie is alone now, feeling a bit like Lance must have felt on the first week of the Tour de France last year. All the climbers are now together. There is the winner of yesterday's stage in the polka dot jersey. Number 144 here is Gomez
This is
Marchant.
not the leading group. Hincapie is actually in the second group on the road, because there's Christian van der Velde, and George Hincapie is actually riding with Juan Miguel Mercado, so he's not in the leading group of riders on the road. He's currently riding with the yellow jersey.
Well, this split, our camera is not indicating, like it often does, as to exactly where they're positioning themselves. This will be Moto 2, and this is the chase group on the road. So the big turning of the screw up front has got Landis and Leipheimer in it, but no George Hincapie.
I wonder if there is a Team Discovery rider in there. I would expect to see at least somebody. Maybe it will be number 1 there, ace in the hole, Jose Acevedo. Finished high overall in the Tour de France before. At this altitude, it's difficult to see the difference in the colour of the jerseys, but I think I can see a dark blue jersey in the middle there in around about 8th or 9th position.
Well, that big bunch down there, 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 22 riders in the Tour de France. Well, some from this 22 perhaps will come the winner a week on Sunday. They are searching for one Spanish rider, looking from the helicopter there. These 22 are pulling away pretty rapidly from the Hincapie and the Maillot Jaune group. This is the leader. Still a lot of fight in this boy. Where is he getting it from? He went away at 31 kilometers today. We are now just we're approaching the 140th kilometer of the day.
Fabian Wegman about to get picked up. A quick rundown of the riders in that leading group, Phil. Azevedo is in the group. Carlos Sastre is in this group. So is Frank Schleck. Andreas Kloden with Kessler and Rogers alongside him. Christophe Moreau has made the group, as has Leipheimer, Tocznik and Foten of Team Gerolsteiner. Bugert and Menchov are in the group as well, alongside Michael Rasmussen. Cadel Evans on his own, but still there. Floyd Landis on his own, but still present. Damiano Cunego, Arroyo, Zubeldia, Parra and Gilberto Simoni. Now, Simoni did not look good yesterday, but that is a serious sorting out. Now we're seeing the names of the men who want to win this tour.
Yes, and guess what? There isn't a single Team Discovery rider in the group.
Acevedo.
Oh, I beg your pardon. There is Acevedo. Is that why they gave him a top number in the race? We'll see. He's the only man left now that they can pin their hopes on, as the riders continue here to crack just a little bit. Poor old Fabian Wegman. Big day out, little wry smile there as we go past him, straight through the group. And Cunego, first Tour de France, he's also cracked now. Don't forget this man though, he still leads the race, but only just at the moment. But he might get to the top. We're not far from the Spanish border now. He's desperate to get there first.
Well, he's desperate to get into Spain first and get himself a few more points. If he can lead over this climb, he's going to have a very comfortable lead in the King of the Mountains classification. And that classification, Phil, he will then probably lead right the way across the flatlands of France up till the Alps. And that will be a major coup for him and for his team. Huge. Here is the group of the yellow jersey. They are really suffering to stay in contention. No official time gaps back to them, but I would think they'll be losing huge chunks of time.
Well, we'll see. It may be a day that he just hangs on. He can afford to lose a few minutes, but not more than about 4 of them. Because the leaders here, there's Landis. Landis, remember, has just continued to follow the wheels of the attackers. He's not been stressed. Things going good. Leipheimer moving up on the right-hand side now. Cadel Evans, who felt he had a bad day yesterday, having a good day today. These men who didn't use the effort yesterday are now recuperating here as well.
Christophe Moreau looking comfortable, sat in the middle there. Jose Acevedo. Acevedo turning out now to probably be the big star of Team Discovery, but he's a long way down too. 30th at the start of the day, but he will overtake a large number of riders by the end of this evening. We'll see a completely different overall classification. Look at the pain now of David de la Fuente, Phil, just inside of 500 meters to go to the summit of this climb. He is all over this bike, just trying to make the machine go forward.
Just about 400 meters to go to the top now for David de la Fuente, and this will consolidate his lead in the King of the Mountains. The only survivor now of the 4-man breakaway, which started after 31 kilometers. At the top of the Col de Portillon, we will have 45 kilometers to race. The vast majority will be uphill. It'll be on Spanish roads as the peloton lines up behind in the face here of Floyd Landis. He does not look in trouble. He is quietly suffering, but aren't they all? The maillot jaune of the Tour de France is now fighting to stay in yellow.
Well, this man is fighting to get more points in the King of the Mountains classification. That banner over the summit there indicates that this will be the penultimate climb of the day for him. This is the summit of the Col de Portillon. Once he drops over to the other side, he'll be on French soil, and how proud is he going to be about that? But he still faces about 40 kilometers to go to the finish, and apart from 5 kilometers downhill, it's all uphill from now on.
Well, there's no finer barrier between countries than the Pyrenees, but of course this is Europe now. They have the same monetary exchange as well, but nonetheless he's on Spanish soil now, and he's having a terrific day out. He's won the climbs of the Tourmalet. He lost in the sprint the Aspan, then he came back on the Peyresourde. He's now won the Portillon. He's now the leader of the King of the Mountains on a great day in the Pyrenees. Almost said the Alps, and they're still to come. This is the battle. Bogart again looking for Rasmussen to ease him away for second. Rasmussen should get that. These boys aren't interested in the King of the Mountains. They want to win the Tour de France.
Well, Rabobank are doing a superb operation here with their man Michael Rasmussen and Michael Bogart, and just sitting at the back of the group, the man they're working for is number 51, Denny Menschop. This is going to be a great coup for Rabobank. 3 riders in the leading group. CSC will be happy too. They have 2 riders in the group, Sastre and Schleck. Schleck has said he was waiting for the big mountain passes, and he's reported present au rendezvous.
This is the maillot jaune. Remember, he's got to be down more than 4:45, I think it was. Yes, 4:45 on Levi Leipheimer at the finish. Then that Leipheimer would be in yellow today, unless something happens on the last climb of the day, and it could. There's Rasmussen over in second, third Bogart, fourth Landis.
Well, you know, the yellow jersey, Phil, has still not lost his lead, because he's only 1 minute and 25 seconds down on this group, and he had 4.5 minutes or 4 minutes and 45 seconds to play with at the start of the day.
One battleground remains today now, the Tour de France. Welcome to Spain. It's our 6th different country of this year's Tour. Now we're going downhill on a very, very twisted descent here before they start the climb up to the finish. This is the descent just started of the Col de Portillon. 45 kilometers to race to the finish. Very compact group. The flag of Australia waving proudly there.
Well, that'll be waving for Cadel Evans, who is comfortably in the leading group. 2 Australian riders in the leading group, Michael Rogers and Cadel Evans. Evans on his own for De Vita Monlotta, but looking very comfortable. Probably going to get a little bit of a boost to his morale. He felt a bit saddened yesterday because of the fact that that group that went clear finished 7.5 minutes in front of everybody else. This is another group down on the road. There you can see the face of Axel Merckx on the left-hand side, but this is a group of riders who've been left a little bit further back. It looks a little bit like Chris Horner there in the middle, but that, I think, is Wim van Savenment, one of the riders from De Vita Monlotta. Horner dropped very early on the day this afternoon.
Merckx on the left here. We thought he was going to retire, but he's announced yesterday, in fact, that he will ride for 1 more year, so he's decided he enjoys the punishment of the Tour de France. Another year for him. This is Para sitting off the back. Not a great descender.
That must have been either Sastre or Schleck who went down there.
It was CSC, one or the other crashed there, and I'm not sure we're going to see that again. No. He's away anyway.
It was Schleck who went down.
Frank Schleck, number 15. That's bad luck.
Well, this is the risk. He should get back because, in fact, there's a big gap there. The reason there is a big gap is because that man went down. Floyd Landis didn't go down. There he is in 3rd position. And Michael Bogart asking the motorbike, please get out of the way. I know you want good pictures, but move out of the way, please.
Yeah, but they're probably frightened because the riders go down faster than the motor cars can go down. So our motorbike guy probably can't get out of the way right now.
So the yellow jersey goes over the summit of the group at 1 minute 25 seconds behind the group of the main favourites, but 3.5 minutes behind David de la Fuente, who still leaves this race, and he's still at the front end of the action. Riding now on Spanish soil. He's got around about 8 kilometers to go downhill. Once he gets down into the valley road, then all of a sudden he will come into the small town of Bossó, and then from Bosso it's 37.5 kilometers to the finish. And I remember driving the majority of that route last night, and from Bossos to the finish line, Phil, I don't think there is a moment where the race actually goes downhill.
That's where we make the climb, and that's where, once we get towards the end of the day, it's a horrible sight actually, because the 4 and the 5 kilometer banners are directly on top of each other, which means that they go on these corners on the hairpin bends, and you're directly above the other one.
It's very nasty, the last 5 kilometers. I spoke to Rolf Sorensen, a Danish rider, himself a former wearer of the yellow jersey. He actually rode the climb and said it's not really that difficult to climb. I don't see anybody actually making any big time gaps on the climb, unless of course you get dropped, and if you get dropped, he said, you lose massive time margins.
We're on the final climb of stage 11 up to the Pla de Beret. The lone leader of the day, David de la Fuente, has finally been reeled in by the group containing the big names, and they're now pulling away from the second group containing the yellow jersey, Cyril Dessel. He's going to have to fight up the final climb to hang on to his race lead, while the select few ahead of him fight it out for the stage and the psychological edge in the race overall.
Well, that's the Michael Bogart we know. When he grits his teeth, he has a fine set of teeth, and we always can see him coming, usually in single-day races, like the Amstel Gold, where he's an absolute star in April, as he was again this year. I've never seen him with anger like this in the Tour de France. And there's an attack behind here now by Mercado, and this is the group fighting for high position now. Mercado, who is second overall, is trying to save the day. The maillot jaune reacts. He could still be in yellow tonight.
Well, this just might be the acceleration that he needs to keep him in the yellow jersey. The man in the polka dot jersey was trying to outfox him there. He was second overall. The group now is just down to 6 riders.
And they're under the 10 kilometers to go, you know. They are about, yes, that's what I'm saying, they're about 2.5 kilometers behind. They are still with a chance of saving this.
Well, they've got about 2 minutes to play with, but there's a difference in the pressure on the group, because this man on the front, Michael Bogert, is really all over this acceleration. Menchov looks very calm, but the problem is, Phil, I have to say, all of the other riders in this group also look very calm indeed. Bogart seems to be the only one really pulling himself inside out.
Well, they're making him do all the work, and he's doing it unselfishly for his team captain there, Denis Menchov, the Russian on Rabobank, winner by default of last year's Tour of Spain, because they threw the winner out for dope. And now this is the group behind, and this is Joy now Schleck alongside Christophe Moreau. Can't see him, but Zubeldi is in this threesome as well.
It's 3 minutes now from this group of leaders at the front of the race back to the yellow jersey group. They've only got another 1 minute and 45 seconds to lose, and if that group remains intact, then Floyd Landis will be the new leader of this race, but I'm sure somebody else is going to launch an attack before we get to the top.
I am absolutely certain you're right. I'd watch out for Carlos Sastre. This looks like a sort of finish now for Team CSC. Also at the back there, Landis is just going to ride. He's no reason to attack. He's got all the men that matter around him. Why push home any advantage yet? He's still on a quiet note here. Sitting at the back, Andreas Claude, who said his legs would do the talking. Now he's giving us his answer. Cadel Evans, who said he felt bad yesterday, showing us today he's magnificent.
Well, I think that was just a psychological blow at the end of the day when he thought he'd made a big mistake, allowing a group to go 7.5 minutes in front. Now it's going to be a different Cadel Evans at the end of this afternoon, because his morale would switch around completely and utterly. He's riding at the front with all of the heads of states of this year's Tour de France. Menchov, Sastre, Leipheimer, Landis, Kloden, they're all there, the big names. These are still, though, Phil, 6 big names that we've talked about since the start of the Tour, and you can't see the difference between any of them.
And what about Levi Leipheimer starting the day 10.5 minutes behind because of a terrible time trial, and also he didn't ride well yesterday. He could be up amongst the leaders with a 4-minute deficit on people like Landis by the end of the day.
Menchov.
There's Menchov's attack. Well, it was set up by Bogart. Now, what price the others to follow this man?
You have to follow this acceleration at this time. The first man to respond was Carlos Sastre. Landis looked in a little bit of pressure there, but responded admirably. Kloden has gone. There is a little bit of weakness in T-Mobile now. T-Mobile are seeing the first chink in the armour of Andreas Kloden. Look at that face. Menchov looks over. What damage have I done? Well, you've got rid of a couple, but you haven't got rid of Sastre, you haven't got rid of Landis, and you haven't got rid of Cadel Evans.
And I don't think you will either, looking at the faces, but he's looked over his shoulder, see how many he has got rid. Where's my man?
Floyd.
Where's Bogart? He
Levi
sees Bogart.
Leipheimer.
No, he sees Bogart down there. He's dropped his teammates as well as he's dropped Kloden. And now there are but 4 or 5 of them left. and now Leipheimer's going. That was to be anticipated. Levi Leipheimer, he's the lowest place. They might not react. Oh yes, they will.
Well, they won the stage victory. They didn't need to react to Levi Leipheimer. He's a long way down. He's about 6 minutes behind Floyd Landis in the overall classification, but Menchov wants the stage this afternoon, nails him back admirably. Landis just sitting there waiting, comes back up on the wheel of Menchov. Sastre is probably the most dangerous rider. Cadel Evans still there. We're down now to 5 men in the final few kilometers of this mountain.
Well, Leipheimer must be ruining the day. He didn't do a good time trial because he lost so much time. And look at the face of Cadel Evans, still looking good. So too Sastre. A calm and casual drink there for Floyd Landis. Leipheimer's made his move. Now he says to Menchov, you can come and do the work again while I rethink our strategy.
Well, if you wanted to chase me down, you might as well come to the front and set the tempo now, and I'll have another go. And here he goes again.
This is the second one. No,
that was
quickly.
a dummy.
Oh, that was a dummy because Landis was right on his wheel. When you're locked on a rider, there's no point.
Well, it was a good try, but he didn't catch them by surprise. A very strong Denny Menchov, still with the advantage. The man on the left, number 71 in the green and yellow, Floyd Landis, is the best placed man in this group. He has got rid of the closest rider to him in the group, and that was Andreas Kloden, and he's got almost a minute advantage over Cadel Evans. 1 kilometre to the summit of the climb, and race radio has just crackled through with a gap between these leaders and the yellow jersey of 4 minutes and 6 seconds. It is going to be so close between the yellow jersey and Floyd Landis. There are, let's not forget, 20 seconds time bonus for the first man to cross the line, 12 seconds for third, 8 seconds, 12 seconds for second, 8 seconds for third. If Floyd Landis were to win the stage, he would have to wait 4 minutes and 26 seconds, not 4:46.
Right. And this is Andreas Kloden parting the ways here as he races through. Not that far behind the leaders, but not catching either.
Kloden, I make it around about 45 seconds in arrears, but this was a big opportunity today to gap the man. Leipheimer's gone again.
We are watching Kloden. Leipheimer's gone. Menchov's after him. Landis is after him. Cadel Evans is after him. What about Sastre? Sastre looks as though he might be a bit shaky with Evans. Leipheimer making his bid. Now we've got the long plateau once we're over the top yet.
Well, Leipheimer tried to gap these riders, then Menchov was immediately up there.
Going, no.
Well, he's just trying to take control. He's seeing if he's got the acceleration now. You've got to respond to this, Floyd. This is the moment. This is the acceleration that might give you the extra few seconds to give you a yellow jersey at the end of the day. And there he is, right onto the wheel of the Russian. The Russian looks down to check his gears. It's very dangerous to do. Landis now takes over. Now look at the way he's pedaling. This looks like a Lance Armstrong. Cadel is in a little bit of trouble there, number 61 with Carlos Sastre. And at the front now, Floyd Landis has realised there Sastre goes. He wants to win. He still wants to win for Spain.
A huge effort there for Carlos Sastre. I think Cadel's on his upper limit for this day at least, but he's still going to be right up overall. Shoulder to shoulder, Menchov versus Landis, and Menchov is worried. I don't think he can control Floyd Landis right now.
Well, Landis is looking very comfortable. He doesn't have that big acceleration, but what he does have is the ability to slowly bring up the pressure like a big old turbo diesel engine. Once the turbo starts to kick in, he comes up and he closes down on all of these accelerations very comfortably. Thank you very much. Landis now with Menchov, Levi Leipheimer. He's still trying to think, Phil, whether or not he can win this race. But also what these three riders are doing is trying to gap the Chase's yellow jersey by 4 minutes and 45 seconds, give or take a few, depending on the bonuses.
Well, over the summit we go, and it was Menchov first, but now it's Landis taking up the running from Menchov and Levi Leipheimer. Menchov is in an American sandwich here, and Leipheimer is back. That's the big news for Gerolsteiner.
Well, I'm just thinking about what Robbie Ventura, the coach of Floyd Landis, said to me the other day. He said Floyd can generate 1,200 watts in the sprint, but he doesn't want to sprint. He doesn't want to go right up there because sprinting really hurts his hip. And no, he probably won't want to do that because he's still got a long lot of racing to do in the race like this. Despite the fact that this man is injured, despite the fact that he is facing a hip operation after the Tour de France, what he wants to do, Phil, is go out the overall winner after 3 weeks. He's not going to risk it for an individual stage win, I don't think.
Well, don't forget, they're into a headwind now, and the boys behind Landis, it's their advantage. Leipheimer would like to win now to wipe away the bad memories of the opening week of this year's Tour de France, which has put him in 58th place. He's going to be right up amongst it tonight when we see the next result He's back, and Sir Carlos Sastre here rides fourth on the road.
Carlos Sastre was hoping to take the victory for Spain here this afternoon. We're on Spanish soil. Floyd Landis goes to the front, whipping up the pace. This is now like a man who is thinking about time, not about an individual stage. I've made a quick calculation. If Floyd Landis finishes third on the stage and takes the 8-second time bonus, then he's going to have to wait for 4 minutes and 37 seconds.
Look at the face of Levi Leipheimer here. He's just waiting for the moment to take a jump for the line. He wants to win this stage more than anything right now, the Gerolsteiner rider. He is going to sit in the slipstream of these two riders. They have the most to gain this afternoon in high overall positions. Leipheimer wants a stage win, and that's uppermost now in his mind. Very difficult finish. It's on the flat, but it's against the wind now. Look at the face of Denny Menchov here now. Leipheimer grits his teeth and hangs on. This is a 200 meters to go. Brake hard, swing left, hit the headwind. Leipheimer now, can he come out of the stream? Here he comes. I'm not sure they can handle this one. It looks to me as though Denny Menchov is going to make this for the victory. He gets it. Leipheimer second, Landis third.
Well, now what we've got to do, Phil, is look at the clock. I made a quick calculation. Here is Sastre and Cadel Evans coming into the line. We have got to see 4 minutes and 37 seconds if Floyd Landis is going to take the overall lead here. Sastre and Cadel Evans coming in. They've not lost too much. That keeps Cadel well up at the top of the overall classification. He has seen himself move up a long way in the race this afternoon. He started the day in 11th. He's probably going to move up into third. Hats off to this man. He set it up for the win this afternoon. Michael Bogaert, the boogeyman from Holland, has done a great job, and this is his best ever mounted top finish that I can remember.
And his work was so well founded, because the man he did it all for will be drinking the champagne with him tonight, Denny Menchov. And Menchov will be up amongst the leaders now, second or third in this race. All depends on how it all happens later. The clock is running. It's nearly a minute since the Menchov, Leipheimer and Landis crossed the line. If it goes to 4:37, and then it's all over, and Landis will be in yellow. Boy, what a great day of racing this has been.
They're at a kilometre to go, Phil.
Well,
it is going to be very, very close, because it's slightly downhill. They can do 60 kilometres now, but after 6 hours of racing...
He has got to ride the last kilometre in 1 minute and 7 seconds.
Well, if he was riding on the track, that'd be pretty close to getting himself a World Championship title. 4:37 is what we're looking for. We're now up to 4 minutes. He has 37 seconds left to do it. He's got to sprint this a little bit further down. We forgot about all the men who've been in the action. This is Acevedo coming home with Gilberto Simoni, David Arroyo. The clock is ticking.
He's
this is
going
the
to swing
yellow
into
jersey.
the home straight here and see that clock, and it's going to say that he's not the leader of the Tour de France. He's about to come into that final bend. What a fight on his shoulders here. What a desperate day in the mountains for everybody. This man rode so well. Is it going to be one mountain too far? 4:37 is the time.
It's going to be desperate.
5, 6. Floyd Landis leads the Tour de France tonight as Dessel races home, and he's just out of the yellow jersey. How sad is that?
Well, I suppose it depends who you ask. Any sympathy Floyd Landis might have felt was drowned out by his euphoria at realising he'd taken the yellow jersey. Dennis Menchov was pretty happy too, his first ever Tour de France stage win, underlining his status as a serious contender for overall victory.
It's my first victory in the Tour. If for general classification, I think it's important also, because I have to stay with favorites like Landis, like Claude and Moreau. Today we satisfied it.
Well, I didn't want to do all the work, but I didn't really have a choice. The guys that were close to me were dropped, so rather than worry about the stage, I did the majority of the work. Cadel helped a lot, and unfortunately he was dropped a little bit at the end, but he and Menchov both helped a bit, and yeah, didn't expect it to go quite that well, but we'll take it.
Behind the lead trio of Menchov, Leipheimer and Landis on the stage, Cadel Evans and Carlos Sastre crossed the line together 17 seconds back. Michael Bogaert finished on his own in 6th, his work for Menchov done. Andreas Klöden came in 9th, a minute 31 down after he was dropped by the lead group, with his teammate Michael Rogers another minute and a half behind him. José Acevedo was the first Discovery rider in. He lost 4 minutes 10, while Cyril Dessel lost 4:45, exactly his lead over Floyd Landis. His prevarication the day before had handed Landis the race lead, perhaps before the Phonak rider really wanted it. In any event, he became only the 5th American ever to wear the yellow jersey, the first avascular necrosis patient of any nationality. In the overall standings, Landis led Dessel by the 8-second time bonus he'd gained for 3rd place on the stage, but his effective lead was 61 seconds over his nearest serious challenger, Denis Menchov, in 3rd. Other than Dessel, the top 6 now had a serious look all round, with Cadel Evans a minute 17 off the lead and Andreas Klöden 2:29. Klöden's teammate Michael Rogers was 7th, the best part of a minute further back, with Levi Leipheimer still over 5.5 minutes in arrears thanks to his disastrous time trial. Stage 12 brought the Tour back into France in time for Bastille Day, and the spectacular medieval fortress here in Carcassonne provided the setting.
There are 3 hugely significant dates in the history of Carcassonne. The 3rd century AD, when some far-sighted Roman first had the idea of sticking up some walls to defend the castle they'd built on this rock. Then 1209, when the Crusaders turned up and trashed the place en route to bigger and badder adventures further east. And then, of course, 2001, when Ryanair first started flying here. What do you think of Carcassonne, then?
Carcassonne's lovely. Fantastic castle. Coming from Scotland, we have great castles anyway, so...
Yeah. So, just the castle or a bit of cycling as well today?
Just the castle, I think. I think the cycling will be far too busy for us.
We're just killing time, really.
What do you make? It's not a bad way to kill time, is it, before the cycling?
It's not bad, it's not bad.
Excellent.
Yes, we've arrived. It's not so much pimp my medieval walled city, since nobody wants to sell their houses in the old town, but we do like a spot of digital camera tourism here. And it's not just us. The French and the Germans love Carcassonne too, and why not? It's stunning. Talk to the locals and they'll tell you it's made a huge difference to the local economy, though I'm still a little unclear what claim they make to King Arthur and the Round Table. The Tour de France first came here in 1947. It was the first year of Tour director Jacques Godet's reign, and throughout the intervening years it's popped in at regular intervals to check on the ramparts. A nice place to stop off for a bowl of cassoulet in between the horrors of the Alps and the Pyrenees, although for the riders it's just hot and flat and fast.
Well, perhaps wisely, the tour organisers have routed the race and the caravan away from the ancient walled city. After a few hundred years of holding out against intruders, the last thing they need here in Carcassonne is a horde of camembert-chucking publicity junkies. It's definitely one of those stops, though, on the Tour de France where you say to yourself, I'll bring the family back here one day. I wonder if the riders ever look up.